Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Kickstarter Real Estate Investing. In this week's episode, I want to cover another mortgage loan product which you can use to buy a real estate investment property. And this one is called as the ARM loan. Okay, and ARM stands for adjustable rate mortgage. An adjustable rate mortgage is different than the fixed rate mortgage which you saw in the previous episode, where the fixed rate mortgage has a fixed rate of interest throughout the duration of the loan. So through the entire duration of the loan, your rate of interest stays the same. Okay. In an adjustable rate mortgage, there is an initial period in which you get a teaser rate. A teaser rate is nothing, it basically means you get an introductory rate which is lower than the market rate. And then after that initial period is over, you switch over to the adjustable part of it, which varies based on market condition. Okay. So in this case, let's say you are looking at an ARM product where they say it's a 3-year ARM, a 5-year ARM, or a 7-year ARM. And what that means is, in your 30-year loan process, the first part of it, whether it's a 3-year ARM, 5-year or 7-year, those number of years, the rate will be fixed. So let's take the example of a 5-year ARM. In a 5-year ARM, the first 5 years is going to have the fixed rate of interest, and the next 25 years is going to be the variable rate of interest. Okay, and then they will also have something called as 5-1 ARM. The 1 indicates the frequency, the yearly frequency, in this case because it's 1, the yearly frequency where the rates get adjusted. Okay, if it was a 5-2 ARM, what that would mean is that after the initial 5-year period is done, an adjustment is made based on market condition, and the next adjustment is made after 2 years. Okay, in a 5-1 ARM, adjustment is done every year. So that is the other aspect of it, like when does the adjustment happen? Okay, now let's talk about how the adjustment happens. Okay. Now, for the adjustment to happen, there are two things which the banks take into consideration. Okay. First is the index, which is, think of it as the very simplest term. It's a market index based on the state of the market. Okay. So if it's a high interest rate market, your index is going to be high. If it's a low interest rate market, your index is going to be low. Keep it from that simplicity perspective. That's what it means. Okay. And the second part of it is called the margin. Margin is what the banks make money on. Okay, so in this case, let's assume that you're doing a 5-year ARM loan and you basically got an introductory teaser rate of 4%. In this case, for the first 5 years, you'll pay a fixed rate of interest of 4%. And then in year 6, they will go out, the bank will go and say, okay, what is the index out there? And if that index is based on some well-known index, which is governed over a huge amount of banks and regions and all that, right? So it is going to be some well-known index which they will use, and they will say, okay, now the index will come back and say, yeah, today in this market condition, the index is 5. Okay, so the index rate is 5%, and bank says my margin is 1%. Okay, and that is already predetermined. The margin, everything you'll know ahead of time when you're applying for the loan. So all this paperwork will have all the numbers, so there are no surprises there. The only surprises or only thing which is unknown is what the index will be over a period of years. Okay, that's what you find out every year or every few years whenever the bank decide to compute it. Okay, so now you know that you're paying 4% interest rate for the first 5 years, and the market index came as 5% and the margin is 1%. Okay, so now the bank can come back and say, in year 6, I will charge you 6% because 5% is the index and 1% my margin is 6%. You're paying 4%, and from year 6, you should be paying 6%. But before they can charge you 6%, that extra 2%, there is another limit which comes into play. And that is the initial rate limit. So in this case, in your paperwork, when you go to the bank terms and condition, they might also put there saying that we will not raise more than 5% in the initial rate increase. And this is to insulate the person who's taking the loan. They don't want to have such high fluctuation in the interest rate that the person cannot pay it, right? So it's more of a protection than just saying, okay, we're going to charge you 10% interest rate now. So in this case, if the bank has a statement which says that we will only charge you up to 5% more interest over your initial teaser rate, which is there. Teaser rate was 4%. The limit is 5% on top of it. So limit is 9%. The index came back as 5% and your margin is 1%, so 6. So now the bank will say, okay, the 6% falls between 4 and 9, so I can rightfully charge you 6% interest rate. So in the year 6, the bank charges you 6% interest rate. Okay, all fair and good. Now you go to year 7. Now you're going to the next year, and again, because it's a 5-1 arm, every year the bank will go and say, what is the index? And the index might come back and say, okay, the index is 6% now. What is my margin? Margin is 1%. Okay, so in year 7, I can charge you 7%. But before they can charge you 7%, another cap limit comes into play. And this is the limit which says that over the next period of time, what is the incremental cap? Okay, the incremental cap could be something like 2%. What that means is every year after that introductory rate is over, after that initial rate hike is done, the bank cannot charge you more than 2% in the next interest rate hike. Okay, so you were at 6%. Now in year 7, the bank is saying, I'm going to charge you 7%. The difference is 1%, which is less than the 2% limit which is there. Okay, and so on. So on year 8, if the index is at 7% and the margin is 1%, that becomes 8%. So the bank says, I'm just increasing your interest rate by 1%, which is less than the 2% margin, which is put out there. Okay, now when you go to year 9, and let's say the index is at 8%, margin is 1%, you are at 9%. Now, before you go any further, there is also one other final limit, which is a lifetime rate increase limit. And here, the bank might say very early in the process that we will not charge you more than 5% of your lifetime limit, which is there. So a lifetime limit is only 5%. So if your initial rate is 4% and the lifetime limit is 5%, then 5 plus 4 is 9%. So the rate increase cannot be more than 9% over the life of the loan. Okay, so in year 9, when let's say the index is at 8%, okay, and the margin is 9. So in year 9, after the 9% is done, in year 10, even though the index grows up by 1% or 3%, the bank cannot charge you more than 9%. So the bank has basically said that we will start your interest rate at 4% and we will not go beyond 9%. So your variable rate will always be between 4% and 9%. So that way you know what are your upper bounds and lower bounds of your rate changes. Okay, so that does insulate you, but think about it. You're making an investment. You don't know tomorrow you're going to be charged 7% or 9%. That's the variable part, and that is not something you should go on for a long period of time. It's okay in the initial years. Okay, so this is the ARM product, and this is a little different than the fixed rate. There is a volatility included in here, but also keep one thing in mind. Index doesn't mean that it always goes up. What if the index goes down by 2%? Your rate of interest would go down by 2% because the whole point of variable rate is based on the market index and not necessarily index goes up. But when we do the estimations and when we do the underwriting, we always worry about the worst case scenario. So keep this thing in mind. When you think of an ARM product, these are the 4 things you have to keep in mind. What is the initial rate you'll be paying? What is the initial rate increase which will happen? What are the different caps in place, which is the initial rate cap, the ongoing interest rate incremental cap, and what is the lifetime interest rate cap? And when you look at all these things and put it together, you can know the range of interest rate you might end up paying for the loan you're buying. Okay. In next week's episode, I'll go into a little more detail about when should you actually leverage ARM and when you should not be using ARM. Okay. Hope this episode was helpful to you. If you like this episode, please go like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye.